Hey, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Strong and Fit Women of Faith. This is your host, Carrie Leonardini. How are we doing today? I am bringing this episode to you from some inspiration as I was reading my scriptures, and I was reading from Proverbs. And something had me go to the Proverbs 31 woman, right? And there's some key things I want to pull out of a few verses, starting at verse 15. I'll be reading out of the Amplified Version. But so there's some key things, there's some principles that I want to point out for helping you cultivate and to plan and to be diligent in your actions to be able to get the favorable outcome that you want with your health and your fitness, right? So strong and fit, right? That's mind, body, and spirit. And I know a lot of it we can feel challenged around when it comes to doing those daily things, right? Like you have work, you have kids, you have a spouse, or you have all these things happening. And it's like, where do I find time for me? How do I plug it in? And I think we need to be asking ourselves better questions. And by asking ourselves better questions, we are going to get better answers and then better results because we all have the same amount of time in a day, right? And so, how come some people are able to accomplish their goals and some are not? Right. I really believe it comes back to what we're thinking, what goes on between our ears, right? Because our thoughts lead our life. And a lot of the times we are thinking the same thoughts on repeat. If we don't capture those thoughts, right? Because thoughts are not thinking, they're thoughts that come in, right? And our subconscious mind is running the show until we become aware of those thoughts and make sure they are in alignment with the word of God and what we say we want to complete and accomplish. Because if we have a goal like, oh, I want to lose weight, I want to get back in those jeans, I want to feel great in my body again, I want to get this weight off, I'm determined to do it. But all those thoughts that come up are like, you can't do it, it's too hard, I don't have enough time, I'll start again here. Oh, but what about this? Oh, I can't do that, right? Our words that we're speaking go against what we say we want. Therefore, we can never achieve it, right? God says, ask and believe, right? Because as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So heart is another word for subconscious mind, right? So we have to capture those thoughts and take them hold and see if they're in alignment with what we say we want. If they're not, we got to replace them with the words that are. This should be I can, I will, I'm able versus I can't, I don't, I won't, right? We need to switch it to that positive and be sowing those seeds into that field of our mind so we can actually get the outcome that we want. And there's some key things that I saw as I read in Proverbs 31. Like I said, it's the amplified version. And some of these key things I want to share with you, which was preparation, diligence, delegation, and implementation, right? And we can apply these to every area of our life. But I really want to speak to this aspect of creating healthier habits, right? Because if we have the same amount of time in our day, whether we have a full-time job, part-time job, work from home, a stay-at-home parent, it doesn't matter. What matters is what's your priority. And the Proverbs 31 woman is our guide, if you will. She's a pattern for us to follow. And when we follow these key principles that are in this, which is the preparation, the diligence, the delegation, and the implementation, then we will get that good fruit, which is peace, plenty, provision, and favorable outcome, right? So in verse 15, it says, she arises while it is yet night and gets food for her household and assigns her maids their tasks. We are not meant to do this alone. We should not feel like we're super women and that we have to do everything all on our own and pride ourselves on that. Because this shows right here. She gets up early enough so there's time for her, right? And when it says food here in the Amplified Version, it speaks about spiritual food, right? She gets fed spiritually first so she can pour from a full cup, right? So if we are wanting to be able to have a strong and fit body, have a lifestyle and stop doing all the fad this and that, and pop this and pop that and drink this, and instead create healthy, sustainable habits that have you walking around in a body you feel amazing in and feel good about, right? With the energy and vitality that you want without feeling the overwhelm, then we need to do this. We need to get up and have that time, whether that's 10 minutes, 30, whatever, right? I take about 30 minutes and I get up and I have that time, that quiet time to be fed. And then what happens? Then she goes and she is assigning tasks. She's delegating, right? She gives tasks or assigns tasks to her mates. So again, maybe the kids have certain tasks they're going to help with. The spouse does. You have yours. Maybe you're having outside help come in and help with cleaning the home or maintaining the yard, whatever that looks like. Maybe you're getting your groceries delivered versus having to spend that time going out, right? You are delegating things that don't require you to physically have to do them, right? That where you can get that support to help. And I think that's key, right? That's that delegation piece. And then in 16, it talks about she considers a new field before she buys or accepts it. She's expanding prudently and not courting neglect of her present duties by assuming other duties. With her savings of time and strength, she plants fruitful vines in her vineyard. So what can we pull from this? One, make sure your yes is a yes. If your calendar is filled from sun up to sundown, there's stuff in there that needs to be removed. Do you really have to be there? If you feel you do, why? Are you telling yourself you need to, or do you physically have to be there from sun up to sundown? Is there not some place you can delegate? Is there some things you can say no to in this season so you can prioritize your health? Because you know that you only have one vessel. And I know you want to be more respectful of that vessel because it's a gift. It's the only one we get this side of heaven, right? And it is the vessel in which we get to fulfill our purpose. If our vessel is broken down, we can't show up and fulfill the purpose that God has placed on our lives, right? And so we have to evaluate before we say yes. Are we going to be able to continue to do? Can we still show up? Can we get our exercise in? Are we going to get our movement in? Do you have time to be able to get the groceries in and prep what you need to prep to put healthier meals on the table? Do you have time built in so you have some downtime, some intentional time with your family, with your friends, with yourself, with God, right? And that's why it's so important is we have to be intentional in what we say yes to. Is it going to allow us to continue to show up the way we want to show up and the way we're called to show up, to serve the way we want to serve? Or is it going to take away from that and hinder that progress? Because by doing this, right, it says here, you save time and strength. Therefore, your outcome is fruitful, right? We want that favorable outcome. Well, then we have to remove some stuff, right? That maybe we're doing that are just fluff and filler. And we think we have to because we have this belief that if we don't, then, right? Which really stems from people pleasing. We have to uncover some of this and really take stock because you don't fall into a healthy and fit body. And just because someone may be quote unquote skinny does not mean they're healthy, right? And so it's so important that we don't go by just how we physically look. It's like, what types of food are we taking in, right? Are we hydrating, right? Are we hydrating properly? Are we getting to bed on time? Are we having firm boundaries in place for when we get up and when we go to bed so it supports us and so we have the energy, can enjoy our life? Are we waking up just mad as can be, hating life, and feeling like we have no time for ourselves and are just discouraged, right? That is not the abundant life that Christ came to give. So I really think if we're feeling that way, if you're feeling that way, it's time to take stock in what you're saying yes to. It's time to take stock in what you're thinking and really be radically honest with yourself, right? And uncover those limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck because your comfort zone doesn't want you to rise above and get to that glory zone. It wants to keep you right in that comfort zone where there's no change happening, right? For good or for bad. So when we are prudent and making sure what our yeses are and what our nos are going to be, we're going to save time, we're going to save energy, and therefore we're going to be able to enjoy life more to the fullest. We're going to be able to have that time for the things that we say are important to us. One being our health, right? Without our health, we have nothing. Health is our first wealth. And in verse 17, she goes on to say that she girds herself with strength, spiritual, mental, and physical fitness for her God-given task and makes her arms strong and firm. So it's in the Bible. We should be working out in such a way that is going to allow us to do any physical demands that are necessary to live out our life and not be a burden to somebody else, right? And I am passionate about making sure I train my body in such a way that under my own power, whatever I can do in my strength to keep me from being in a wheelchair and being a burden to somebody else because I chose not to take care of my body, right? And so you have to decide, what does that look like for you? Is that moving your body every day? Right? Is that going to the gym? Is that doing a workout from home? Is that hitting, Pilates or a yoga session, whatever that looks like, right? But it's not just the physical part. It's also the mental and spiritual. So we have to make it a practice. How do you bring this in, right? Can you take 5 minutes to sit before you go into the office in your car and be present, right? And practice your breath and just being present with the Lord before you go in, right? Can you take a few minutes to visualize how you want your day to go, right? Really see it, feel it, and get excited about it, and then go about your day. I can tell you this, when I've gone to situations that were uncomfortable for me because I was going into events that I didn't know anybody, and while I'm a very much an extrovert, I'm human and I don't like to go places I don't actually know anybody. I know I can strike conversations, but when I stopped and I just sat and I told myself why it would be so awesome and the interactions I would have, the people I would meet, guess what? I had the most amazing time, met the most amazing people, and even won prizes, right? So it all comes back to the way that we're thinking. And we can practice this by taking some intentional time, right? And we come back to these key things that we're learning from these verses, which is preparation, diligence, delegation, implementation. So we really have to look at how we're going to implement what we've learned to gird ourselves with strength, right? To be prudent when we consider what we're going to say yes to, right? How do we implement that time to move our body, to train it so we can be physically strong, right? To take the time, right? To make it a priority to get fed spiritually, right? And the last thing I want to add in here is verse 18. So 15 through 18 here, we're reading in the Amplified Version. And verse 18 says, she tastes and sees that her gain from work with and for God is good. Her lamp does not go out, but it burns on continually through the night of trouble, privation, or sorrow, warning away fear, doubt, and distrust. So when we implement these principles, right, of preparation, delegation, right? And when we are being diligent, these are key principles to be able to get that favorable outcome that we want, to have the peace, to have plenty, to have provision, right? And to have the outcome you want of walking in that body, right? You've already experienced what it's like to do the fad diets, to try this, to try that, lose some weight, and then gain it all back, right? We're done with that. We're in our 40s now, ladies, and beyond. And some of you listening may be younger than that. And I just want to encourage you, like, our bodies do change. And the beautiful part is every stage tells a story, and we get to look back and see the favor of God, right? And we get to ask ourselves, are we showing up the way we're called? Are we taking care of the gift we've been given? Are we being good stewards, right? Because it's so easy to forget that this life is not our own. If we're a believer in Christ, this life is not our own. Right. And for me, that I have to remind myself daily, because let me tell you something, my flesh wants, my flesh wants. Sometimes my spirit is like being suffocated by my flesh. Anybody else? Right. And so it's being intentional in our time. And I don't know about you, I have a morning routine in place that allows me to feed my mind, body, and spirit. I have water. I have my quiet time. I have my prayer time. I have journaling. I get up and I go for a walk. So I hit all mind, body, spirit in my 30 to 45 minutes of my morning routine, right? And my workout is usually later on after I drop kids off at school. But that's what I've committed to, and that's what I do. And it allows me to show up. I wake up rested. I wake up thankful and fulfilled, because I know I'm sowing seeds for my present and my future. And I'm doing it in such a way that's going to honor the Lord as well, and not just myself, right? And so putting a plan together, we got a busy schedule, but let me tell you, when I worked corporate, single mom, 2 toddlers, working full time, commuting, and trying to get kids out of the house and get food prepped and all the things. Let me tell you something. The first few years I was in survival mode, let me tell you. But I found creating a morning routine allowed me to be able to fill myself spiritually so I could pour from a full cup and not be all cranky and angry and yelling at the kids to get out of the house, because that's what I was doing. And that was not the type of life I wanted. And so I had to reassess. I had to become radically honest with myself as, how do I want to live? How do I want to raise my kids? Because this is not it. I don't want them to having an irritated mom, because that's not fair, right? And all they have is me. So creating a morning routine really helped, having some routine, a plan in place. Even if it was a loose plan, it helped immensely. I had when I was going to work out, I had when I can go for a walk. I had when I was going to go to the store with or without the kids. And it made life so much easier. And a lot of this, it can feel overwhelming. Well, how do I put the plan together? I don't have this extra time. And let me tell you something, you don't need a ton of extra time. You can most likely just make a few tweaks in what you're currently doing or add on slightly to a habit you already have. And so it doesn't take a lot of extra time, right? Because you were mixing it with what you're already currently doing and making some slight adjustments, and you're going to get tremendous results. And if you're in a place right now where you're like, Carrie, I need some help. Like, I need a plan, I need a roadmap, something to follow that was going to help me, that can fit into my busy schedule and allow me to get results without having to, go to the gym 5 days a week and work out for an hour or two at a time. Like, I need some help. I need some quick meals. So if that is you, I want to invite you into our next 5-day challenge, my friends. It really is 5 days to help you craft and create a sustainable fat loss plan, my friend, where you can lose that body fat, build lean muscle, and be able to have the physique you want, the healthy habits in place. And over these 5 days, you're going to cultivate and build that roadmap and plan specifically for you. We're going to base it off principles. The beautiful thing about principles, they work if you work them, and you can apply them in a way that works for you. That's the beautiful thing when you get away from the diets and the fads and you work on principles of healthy living. Anybody can do it, right? And you get to adapt it to what works for you, and you get the results because it's for you. So it is 5 days. We start March 18th. It's going to be held inside of a private pop-up Facebook group. I'll be going live each day with your training, your guidance, and your homework to be able to start writing out that plan. And over 5 days, at the end of those 5 days, you're going to have your custom, unique plan that's for you. And to top it off, you're going to have an additional support within that private Facebook group for 30 days as you work to implement that plan. So if that sounds like something that you could really benefit from, or you have some girlfriends that could really use it, definitely look below in the show notes and you will find a link to get registered for that. Feel free to share that link with your friends. Definitely tag me as you join in and let me know. And if you got questions about what we covered today, let me know. But just encourage you to go back to Proverbs 31, read 15 through 18, and really just meditate on it. And just ask the Lord, what is the next step he's calling you to? And if you know that you are not truly living in that body that you know is possible, right, where you feel good, right, and you're not picking yourself apart, but you're looking in the mirror going, girl, you look good. You doing good, right? Then I want to invite you to this challenge. So come join us. And next week, definitely tune into the podcast. We have another guest expert coming in that I'm so excited to share the conversation with. So join us next week, same time, same place.